Shepherding Chaos, the Retail 247 podcast. Embracing change in the world of retail tech.
Hello, I'm Martin Schofield, CEO of Retail 247, and this is another episode of Shepherding Chaos, our gentle meander through all things retail and technology. Joined today on the sofa by Neil Sansom, the Chief Executive Officer of SGS Engineering, and Brad Houldsworth, Strategy Director of Remarkable Commerce. We're going to wander through the journey that all three of us have been through to rationalise and look at the sort of systems architecture of everything there at SGS. Neil, you joined, 2 years ago now? I can't lose track of time.
Yes, 2 years. So my anniversary was a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
That's fair.
What did you find when you arrived? What was the brief?
I think obviously SGS has been going for 20 odd years and was set up by a typical entrepreneur who basically developed the business step by step, driving sales rather than driving infrastructure. And his architecture was extremely old in terms of the whole systems. Data was being stored in various different places. And when I got there, it was really probably the first couple of months was listening, learning from the people there and deciding what path we should choose to go forward and how we should actually do that. There were some decisions that had to be made very quickly. So the business was on a Magento 1 platform. Magento 1 had about 6 more weeks to be supported. Right. So we had to immediately go on to Magento 2. Yeah. So there was a mad panic to do that. Otherwise the business would have floundered for sure. So we got Magento 2 out the door. And then it was really taking stock of everything else.
Excellent. And I guess, as you said, like a lot of retailers, you end up with an environment where technology is an inhibitor to progress more often than not. And it sounds like that's formed that same sort of story.
I think so. I mean, it was the technology was very old and hadn't been updated. So we were running a warehouse management system that was basically 5 versions out of date. We were running an ERP, a Sage ERP, that was also out of date with apparently the biggest database in Europe because it had never been actually stored historically and archived on a continuing basis. And then we went on to Magento 2 so quickly that a lot of the modules that sat on Magento 1 that we pushed onto Magento 2 didn't work. Yeah. Because there was such a massive gap between Magento 1 and Magento 2. So it then became a bit of an exercise to look at the systems architecture, what we needed, where we wanted to go. And I think the first thing we identified, funnily enough, was a PIM, data. It's all right. And of course, having contacts in the industry always helped to look around to see which PIM would be the most suitable. We were holding data in the ERP system and we were holding it in Magento, and some of that data conflicted. And spreadsheets, yes. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess that Brad and I'll talk about our experience then. So obviously we then spoke, and the collation and curation and use of consistent product data was something that was quite key in that initial part of that journey. So from a Retail 247 perspective, we worked with Neil and the team to deliver Origin, our platform. And that was a sort of precursor to your replatforming, and that's where Remarkable come in, I guess.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, the data was in such a mess. We obviously needed the PIM to have data in one place, and then it took us a lot longer than we thought in terms of rationalising that data, pushing it into R247, into Origin, and eventually, that was the key cornerstone really before we could move on to a new ecom platform. Yeah. So it took us a little bit longer to do that than we initially thought.
Yeah, and just on that front, I guess it was a positive experience from my perspective because we learned things from a relatively new industry to us. We've done a lot of fashion work beforehand and doing things as perhaps you've experienced the first time in going to SGS, the world of the spare part and the air compressor and things that actually we've since taken back into other verticals, if you like. Linked SKUs are quite important, and we've been able to talk about them, but actually they came from working with yourself. Yeah, products being spare parts and spare parts of other things, etc.
And we did crazy things like a business. We would buy a 7-piece kit of tools, and we'd break that kit down into individual components and then sell those individual components. And then even worse than that, we would actually take some of those components and bundle them again into 2 or 3 particular products.
Yeah, and that was interesting from my perspective. And you may not be able to talk about it in depth, but that's to give you price uniqueness effectively. It's
Absolutely.
quite a cutthroat margin industry you work in now.
It is in power tools, and that's exactly what was happening in the power tools market. It's very cutthroat, and to try and get some sort of USP, you try and create some unique bundles so that the price becomes a little bit more, how should I say, less of a commodity to a customer.
Yep. You then thought about the web platform itself to gain some further benefit.
Yeah, so once we got the PIM in, we looked, obviously, Magento 2 just couldn't handle the functionality we needed. So we looked around, considered some other platforms, things like Shopify, obviously, big e-commerce tools, etc., BigCommerce, and looked around and thought we just need something a lot more agile, just because of the nature of our business, because we are always creating bundles, we are always creating new SKUs with new attributes, etc. And so looked around and needed something where we could get someone to respond quickly to our unique requests and to build something that was not too bespoke, but could be bespoked in certain areas.
Yeah, was sort of conscious and cognizant of the nuance of your particular sector.
Yeah, I think so. So that's when the conversations happened with Remarkable. I've worked with Remarkable on a number of other businesses that I've been involved in, mainly fashion businesses. Knew the platform very well, knew the team very well. And of course, if you know the people in anything you choose.
90% of the battle.
Absolutely.
Brad, just briefly on Remarkable, was Power Tools and Neil's world new to you at this point?
It was, yeah. Yeah, we'd done, the B2B world a little bit before, and we were playing to our strengths a bit in that product structure, lack of structure, because there doesn't need to be in our world defined particulars in a way. So we were able to work with yourselves, and I think when we did the PIM piece to begin with, I think that was quite early on in the project. The big question was, okay, well, how does the ecom platform need to ingest data? Well, we said, well, however you want it to, essentially. So then instead of that being a outward conversation, it was inward, and we actually asked you guys to say, well, feed us the product data you're already creating, and we'll just configure it on our side to make it work. And just, rather than the other way around. So often there's a schema in place that you have to try and abide by and do that kind of that legwork, which...
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, that it wasn't all plain sailing. There's a few challenges on there, because I think I've not thought about it before, but as you've said, that obviously ours is a completely flexible world in terms of schema that you can have and hierarchy that you can have, and we don't enforce rigidity around that product data. And you're doing the same.
I remember the conversation we had, and it was like, well, this is how we work, and you said, wherever you want us to work. And it's like, okay, chicken and egg a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, and going back to your question about SGS being kind of in this world, this was a first in the kind of power tools world, although we'd done other construction stuff before.
Right. And did you find anything particularly challenging in that area, or anything you had to change in terms of a base platform?
No, but we've learned a lot, though. I think we took our core platform, and it's become incredibly powerful and very unique to SGS. And their version, it has lots of uniqueness to it now. Is unique a good thing or a bad thing in a systems development world? It's good in that if you look at I think of this in two sides. I think of it in the website side, so the functionality the customer uses and engages with, and there's a comparison tool, there's a Gastrut configurator, there's a very custom checkout. Did
you know what a Gastrut was before we started this venture?
I had no idea what Gastrut was. Yeah. And then Neil came to see us and said, look around, and everything has a Gastrut in it, essentially. It's like, nearly. Yeah, actually. Nearly. Yeah. And then we went to obviously visit SGS, and we saw the operation there, and we understood the complexities as well that go into a Gastrut product.
Yeah, I was going to... Is that still on some dated OS version that's going to fall over in a heap at any point soon?
No. So I inherited that. So we had to have a laptop that basically programmed the Gastruts and programs the
pressure, etc. Yeah,
that goes into the Gastrut. And that was on a PC or a laptop that had been bought off eBay. Apparently, was about 10 years old and was running an old version of Windows. We couldn't put it on the network.
Yeah.
So so we had a backup that literally was a hard drive that sat in my drawer in the desk, and that was our backup. So if the building went up and that hard drive went up, we'd have lost the whole gas strut business, which is substantial.
Quite significant. Yeah.
To the business. So anyway, we eventually, after about 9 months, we got that system updated. Had to send it off to Germany. And got the system updated, and it's now sitting on the network on a more secure PC. But just one of the unique stories at SGS that I inherited. Yeah,
well, I mean that's if it had been all plain sailing, you wouldn't have much to do, would you? I guess that's the reason you were brought in, which is a very positive thing. Sorry, I interrupted, Brad. Where were we?
So I think the world of website customer functionality there's lots of stuff on the SGS website now, which is really engaging customers to use. But then the other side of the story is the back office. The admin system that SGS use needed, and there's a lot of requirements there around making that as flexible and as unique to SGS. So, and that was, that played into one of our USPs being it can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. I think we use the framework, don't we? I think the framework of what is there in the back office we use, but at the same time, because we do sell garden equipment, because we sell garage equipment, because we do gas struts, because we do power tools, because we sell sort of fixings and fastenings and workwear. There's a whole ream of different verticals that we're selling with different facets, attributes around each of those. And having something that you can manipulate and actually, create categories on the fly for promotions, create categories as you develop and bring in new products. That was important that we could do that both in the PIM data and the core data, and then at the front end for the customer.
I think throughout the entire project, in the back of our minds was always just thinking forward a little bit. So we were looking about, we knew the warehouse was an issue and there was going to be opportunity for us to work in that way. So we were thinking in that way as well.
Just picking up on a word you used there, Brad, the warehouse operations. And usually, I guess, for a web platform, you've branched out into that world as well, yeah?
Yeah, and as a solution provider, I guess is the best kind of terminology of describing Remarkable. Yes, we have our own ecom platform. We have professional services. We've got nearly 100 developers in Nottingham. But something we've done, especially for our kind of larger enterprise clients, is warehouse. And we've done it for a long time, to be fair. But we've only done it in a very, I guess, where there's specific need. It's starting to evolve now to become quite a big thing of what we offer.
Yep.
I think mainly because warehouses are quite interesting. And the technology that goes into them often is quite archaic. And it's probably about 5 years behind the normal SaaS market, in my opinion. So our approach to WMS was born from ecom, was born from web, was born from understanding complexities with bundling and product data, understanding customer data, instead of the WMS world, which kind of came from ERP world in a way. So when Neil said, look, the warehouse is a problem and we need to look at how we sort that out, then we jumped at that opportunity.
Yeah, no, great. And that's deployed today, in the operation.
Yeah, well, that went live probably it was after the website. I think it was about a month.
We did a couple of phases, didn't we? We did one warehouse, so we have two warehouses in Derby. One that is the volume, large cube, so the very big tool chests, security chests, things of that nature, ride-on lawnmowers, etc. So that's in one warehouse, and then we have the normal warehouse where you would expect a normal bulk warehouse and picking area for the smaller items. And so we went live first with the bulk warehouse as a test to try and reduce some of the risk. So we split our orders in the ecom platform accordingly and pushed them into the different systems depending on where that order came from and was going to. And then we did the final main warehouse just before Black Friday, 3 weeks before Black Friday, which was quite an operational risk. We've been quite brave. We actually reduced the spec a little bit to get it in early. And the only reason we did that is because the old warehouse system, which was sitting on Sage because it was so out of date.
Yeah,
it
creaking
was
anyway.
It was creaking, and we were restarting it 3-4 times a day.
Yeah, there's risk to change, but there's risk to stand still as well, always.
So it was a balance, really. So do we take that risk operationally of disappointing customers and not being able to get orders out the door around Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Or do we take a little bit more of an operational risk where we can, have people on site from Remarkable to actually make sure that everything is being sort of plugged as and when we see different issues becoming aware when we went live. And luckily, that snagging list was very small.
Excellent.
And we got through Black Friday more efficiently than ever. I mean, we used to struggle to get 500 orders out a day. We get 1,500 now without breaking a sweat.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. I guess now, whilst the platform is, I assume, is constantly evolving, you've now got a platform you're comfortable with, and without giving trade secrets away, I assume that's been a benefit to the business.
A massive benefit. I mean, we've taken operational efficiencies in the warehouse, in terms of people and headcount. We've also just got a far smoother way of operation, making a lot less mistakes. We used to operate with 7 couriers. We operate with 2 couriers now. We don't have pallets going onto the wrong courier and getting into the hub and then coming back to us because, obviously the hub can't read that particular pallet and all the barcodes, etc. So the whole operational efficiency has massively improved.
And web trade itself up?
Yeah, web trade's up as well. And one of the key things we've done is we've got onto marketplaces. So we've gone back onto Amazon and eBay, which we were historically on. We're on. When I got there, they'd both broken down on Magento. And so we're back on those. And we've just also gone on to DIY.com as well. So launched that. And we'll look at more marketplaces going forward as well. So, yeah, lots of differences on the web now, lots of benefits that we've taken. And having the web and the WMS integrated together in one solution from one business makes life so much easier. Once we have an issue or we have something we want to develop, we can have that discussion about where it sits. Should it sit on the ecom front back end? Should it sit in the WMS? Where does the complexity lie? Where's the quickest time frame in terms of developer speed to market? So we can have those discussions and decide, well, it's back end WMS, we'll create that there. No, we'll create it in the ecom platform and then split it into the WMS.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
You're saying about splitting. I think that's quite a powerful phrase because splitting is actually applied across loads of different areas of this business. So like splitting of orders into warehouses, splitting of product feeds because of different sites with different brands, splitting of product data in a way, bundling and other things. I think the whole complexity around bundling and splitting out everything is actually probably the biggest thing we talk about on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. And I've seen that in various verticals, as I'm sure you have. The world of retail, whilst simple on paper, is often made quite complex and often unnecessarily so. But yes, you need the flexibility to deal with all that change.
Items, variations.
Yeah. Let's talk about specific differences and things you've adopted in the power tools and DIY world. I gather you've done some sort of work on insurance offers to the end consumer.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things we've done, we've teamed up with a sort of insurance partner, and we've developed what's called embedded insurance, which is very much the sort of new feature where the customer buys a product and takes out insurance at the same time on that particular product for 12 months. So they can take out accidental and theft protection. And so obviously that's pretty critical if you're a tradesman and you're buying a set of power tools.
If the sticker, no tools left overnight, doesn't work.
Yeah, precisely, So that is very, very new. And as a feature, Remarkable had to build that feature in using APIs from the insurance partner. But Brad will talk about a little bit more about the technology on that. But very, very new feature. Not many sites out there are doing it. I think it's going to be a increasing attribute that you'll see. Obviously, the airlines do it. When you buy a holiday or a ticket on an airline, you get asked for the insurance.
Yeah, and are you really sure you don't want the insurance?
Yeah.
When was that done?
That's 3 or 4. Well, It launched just before Christmas, and we've basically added it to more product ranges over the last few weeks. So
Positive take up.
Yeah, I'm very.
Yeah. I think one thing that's been absolutely critical to it was the customer experience, because you can add an insurance widget onto a checkout relatively simply, but it wasn't just that we needed to do. It was, like Neil said, it's only specific products. It's only relevant to the products as well. It's how you manage that in the back end, whether you want to add it on as a product to that order after the fact. There's lots of kind of nuances to adding insurance into an order, and then how we actually store that as part. It's not a product as such. So we had to think about, from a technology point of view, how do we make a dynamic item almost that can then have different prices against it? How do we store that just from a data point of view in our databases? So there's lots of kind of interesting thought around what does the customer journey look like, but then how do we apply that to the platform, and how do we actually get that to work?
I think you're right. I mean, and it's a nice seamless end, because what happens is once you've taken out that insurance, that policy document then goes into your account online on the SGS website. Nice. So you go into my account, you see the policy, you can make a claim online through the API as well. Yeah. So it's a great experience in terms of how you understand that. Yeah. And obviously it's good for SGS because we then hopefully retain that customer and have the loyalty because they're going back into my account, etc., and come back and purchase again. And I'm sure, Brad's probably, he's got other clients. There's a snow client, there's a jewelry client. This type of application could easily go into their businesses and add additional revenue for the retailer.
And the integration itself was really fun to do because it was very modern in its approach. So it was a GraphQL endpoint. We were able to work with that as openly and as freely as we wanted to. So it wasn't a fixed kind of, it only works in this certain way. They're the type of integrations we really enjoy. And then you said then about kind of it going into the account, there was things we had to think about then, because in my account, there's a sort of customer rebuy functionality. So customers can repurchase items they bought before. We had to then think about logic for how do we take care of
services. Yeah.
Exactly. So there was kind of lots of nuances that it wasn't just to plop it in and see what happens.
I did this recently myself. This is where as a consumer you end up suddenly realising you're subscribed to about 24 different insurance policies in your bank account. So it's like TV subscriptions.
See them all
as well,
coming out.
Yeah. And you wonder why you're poor. Yeah, right. Okay. That seems to have worked well there. But I guess it's back to the story of agility and the ability to take on these new opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if we'd have been sitting on a Magento 2 platform, that would have been really painful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and even to a certain extent Shopify as well. I mean, you don't have that same sort of agility once you're into those big platforms. You're locked in a little bit, and then if you do anything bespoke, you then obviously run the risk of the general updates and the updates not working properly and throwing out your bespoke elements, your bespoke modules. So, having something that's a little bit more unique to you, that's on a common platform, you're then aware of all the implications of what you're doing when you develop something new. As Brad said, we have to think about the fact that my account, you didn't want to reorder an insurance product because it's there for 12 months and auto renews anyway.
Lessons learned between you? Would you do anything differently to do it again? No, is acceptable.
Good. No, it's a good question. Just trying to think whether we would have done anything different. I mean, I think, I think we probably would have started on the journey earlier, and I think we would have, obviously all IT projects, you invariably take longer than you think. And
often, particularly when you come into an environment that's legacy, if you want a kind of word, and it's a discovery process as much as anything else.
It is. I mean, you forgot to mention that you guys did the business process mapping for us as well, and we didn't have any business process mapping. We didn't really understand how the existing systems worked and how they talked. There was bits of code going on in there that someone had written in the business 4 or 5 years ago.
And I think we see that a lot, and I often say that actually it's got it to where it was today. It was a successful process. It's just what you do next and how you move on from there.
Yeah. So I don't think we would. I mean, did we make any mistakes? Not really. I mean, the biggest, I suppose, gamble the measured risk was that going live 3 weeks before Black Friday.
Yeah.
It worked out, but it didn't work out from a financial controls point of view because we did lose a little bit of control around stock.
Yeah.
Which we've only just now managed to sort of get back under control.
But it might have been a bigger failure if you had done nothing. So that's the flip side.
Yeah.
I'd add to that because of the speed of the project, we did work at pace. And
don't you always work at pace, Bradley?
Well, with pressure, maybe, is a better description.
Yeah.
And sometimes when there's slightly less pressure, the pace can be just slightly more relaxed. And that allows us to think, I guess, in a little bit more, do things, from a technical point of view, things like integrations. Can we do maybe a more advanced REST integration rather than just a dirty passes files or work it out kind of situation? So that's the only thing I'd add is perhaps we could have, from the early days, we're already getting there now, but the early days started in a better place maybe. But we just worked quickly.
Yeah, it's retail, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, and certainly the approach to Retail 247 is, acknowledging that we need to get the foundations right. And it sounds like you do the same, but actually then just acknowledging that there's a relatively layer of chaos that occurs above that foundation and the world changes and we have to adopt and adapt to that process.
I think that's the key thing is that, you put in all these systems and, they are new systems, but they never stop developing. You can't stop developing in today's market.
No, world changes. Yeah.
The world's changing and, everything changes. We're just about to launch apps, from the website and, that's about to go just after Easter. And, you just got to keep developing. The pace of development is getting faster and faster.
Actually, you acquired a new brand, yeah?
We did, yeah. We bought a brand out of administration when, unfortunately, FFX went down just before Christmas. So we bought a brand called Riker, which is a building materials brand.
And what did that mean in technology terms? Anything? Did you have to do a bit of rapid work to bring that concept on board? Yeah,
it's rapid, obviously. So rapid in terms of the data for the PIM. So everything had to go into the PIM.
Yep.
So obviously we picked up the data. The administrator was very helpful, PwC. So we actually did pick up a lot of the data from them, imagery, etc. That all went into the PIM. And then obviously we had to basically sort that out for the front end and present that on the site. And it's quite a unique brand because it actually sells B2B as well. So we have a number of stockists around the UK that sell it in buildings merchants. Yeah. And to end users, normally sort of building sites where they're building the new chain of houses, that lots of houses being built in the UK at the moment. Yeah. So we've literally just launched a new B2B website with Remarkable on the platform, and that admin sits on the same admin, and so we've now got a full dashboard of sales of Remarkable product that is going through the Remarkable platform through SGS, and then things that are going through the Riker platform, both to customers on the SGS platform and to the stockists. Sorry? Underpinned by a sound foundation of PIM and process. Of course, yeah. And I think I often say when we're having this debate around the ERP world and the big historic system world, I think the fact we're trendily using the composability world gives us that agility to do these things. And I assume you as an organisation will have your eyes open for other expansion opportunities. And again, we have to be in a position to provide a technology infrastructure that can support that. Yeah, I think that's. I think it's always been there, composable. I think. Yeah, perhaps best of breed composable. Call it what you want, but yeah. And I think retailers are just coming. I guess it's a pendulum, isn't it, between them understanding it and them applying it. And from a Remarkable point of view, working with yourselves was extremely smooth. Plugging in, Archean and Locate and all the other integrations was simple. So, and then thinking ahead, how do we look at launching new brands in the future? How do we spin up new storefronts within a few weeks? How do we look at other pieces of the puzzle, perhaps even, with yourselves? There's lots of different opportunities within the ecosystem, and we're not precious. Yeah, no, and I think that's my round-up question was really what next? And I think you started to talk about that from a technology perspective. What's next on your agenda, Neil? We're retirement. Sorry, no. Retirement. Yes, more golf. Yeah, absolutely. I think from an SGS point of view, we've got a lot more product expansion to come in the next few months. So we're developing at the moment a lot of new ranges, which are SGS branded ranges, which we'll be bringing in between now and Black Friday. And then who knows, maybe next year we'll start thinking about some even more audacious ranges as well that we may bring to the market.
Always going to stay digital first, digital only rather?
Well, we've obviously got a trade counter where we are now, which is fairly unique, and we also have a sales team, and we've actually now moved all of them off the old finance system onto the Remarkable platform. So they now take all the orders on the web front end, as does the trade counter as well. So we're going to extend the trade counter. That's hopefully going to be a project that we do before the end of the year. So we'll probably quadruple the size of that.
Physically. Okay, excellent.
Based in Derby. And then we would love to look at potentially, sort of opening some satellite trade counters, I think, at some point. But at the moment, we've got so much on the agenda, in terms of different product ranges, extending those product ranges, developing the Riker brand. So, the agenda is quite full this year.
Sounds like it.
But, I think we've got a lot of stuff to do. I don't think we're going to keep Remarkable idle or yourselves idle in terms of what's required going forward.
Actually, I'm going to circle back to just a question for interest now. You mentioned trading on DIY.com, yeah?
Yeah.
Is B&Q?
B&Q, yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
B&Q.
So what are you selling on there? I'm more interested in the DIY world as a whole now, and what are they getting from you that they historically haven't sold themselves, if that makes sense?
Well, I mean, a lot of retailers obviously are opening this marketplaces, aren't they?
Yeah.
Where they're bringing new brands in. So obviously, Next is the big example, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in the clothing world, fashion world, and even homewares. So B&Q are doing the same with DIY.com. So again, it's garden equipment mainly.
Right. Okay.
So the garden equipment, the SGS trimmers, SGS lawnmowers, chainsaws, tillers, etc. Scrimmers.
Everybody wants to buy a chainsaw. Yeah.
Yeah.
So indeed, chainsaws and tool chests.
They're good. They're good quality products and fairly good value, and it provides a choice on DIY.com, of course, for the customer, not just their own brands, and provides a range and different options and different specs. So early days, but we're trading okay at the moment.
Great.
We've only been on there a couple of weeks.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And I guess from a retail 247 perspective, thanks. It's been a great project. Looking forward to continuing that journey. Brad, I'm sure it's the same for you.
Very much so. Yeah, we've got a lot in the pipeline, both with SGS and the wider team. We're slowly approaching 100 staff, which is getting quite scary.
Yes, numbers get bigger quite quickly, don't they? Yeah.
That list of what we're doing becomes just big. So there's lots of things in my head I could tell you about.
Another episode.
Good to me.
Great, thank you.